A breezy afternoon in Kyrenia 1964, and here we've got the de Glanville family on holiday, on summer holidays, children coming out from school in the UK, and Ray and Daphne and Susan resident in Cyprus. And this is just after the 1960 independence, but also 1964, just a year after the major civil war that erupted between the Greek Cypriots and the Turks in Christmas 1963. So this was like 6 months later, and was a time of pretty high tension on the island as the Greek Cypriots took over control of the government and the police forces. And this house is on Aga Jafar Pasha Street, which is just the front of the house is facing onto the harbour, Kyrenia harbour, and here the scene is in the walled courtyard at the back of the house, just next to the Aga Jafar Pasha Mosque. Beautiful, a very delightful walled courtyard with a fountain in the middle and a lot of flowers. Quite private, but right in downtown Kyrenia. Today it's a very exclusive apartment building, very nice indeed. It's been extensively refurbished. And here is the minaret of the Aga Jafar Pasha Mosque. There's Daphne climbing up the stairs to the first floor apartment that we rented. Susan, followed by the dog. Now we have the archway supported veranda, south facing, covered in. And there's Daphne in the countryside, looks like picking flowers. This was a time where she was running a flower business, and she was mixing cultivated flowers with plastic flowers. Here is Dinah jumping into the harbour off the little pier side, and there's the Harbour Club bar and restaurant run by the Finley couple, which was a big favourite amongst the UN troops. And there we're now looking at the side wall of the yacht club. There's a couple of very well-known friends, Ray and Daphne's, and the cobbled ramp going down to the harbour. And there we've got some fishermen hanging up their nets to dry. That harbour is totally empty compared to how it is today, and there are no restaurants and awnings over tables. Here we're looking at the harbour from outside the harbour wall. We can see the Greek Orthodox Church, and we're in a little family group on this boat with the motor switched off, just floating a few hundred yards outside the harbour, and going for a swim. This is Isabel and Dingle Dell, great friends of Ray and Daphne's, and spent a lot of time in Cyprus. Dingle was a pilot with BEA, and was based in Cyprus. And this is a creation of Ray de Glanville. It was a converted military bridge pontoon with a small outboard stuck on the back, repainted, with a trellis and a striped awning put on it. And Ray put together a fleet of 8 of these things, which he would hire out to the tourists to go out to the beaches down the coast. And there's Daphne in her red cap, and Ray swimming a powerful breaststroke towards the cameraman. And there are the Dells and some of the family on lilos. Looks like there's quite a handy swell coming in from the coast of Turkey, 60 miles away. Lovely place to go out and swim. Looks like it's flat calm with this swell. So now the harbour was about to be, the harbour mouth was about to be filled in. If it wasn't already, we might see in a moment. And there I think we've got Derek and Ray leading an assault on the other lilo floaters. Maybe Chris and Michael getting the worst of it. No prisoners. Take no prisoners. Here's a litter of little black Labradors in the garden of Aga Jafar Pasha Street. A proud mum. Yes, so 64. You couldn't go to Nicosia anymore from Kyrenia by yourself in a car on the road, because the road had been cut off by the Turkish armed forces. And if you wanted to go to Nicosia, you could go once a day by joining a UN armoured escort convoy, which would drive you safely through the Turkish zone to Nicosia. Ray was working, he had found himself a job with a chicken cultivator who was selling, called Bella Pace chickens, and they were selling eggs and factory, no, what do they call lime produced chickens, which was a complete novelty in Cyprus. But it wasn't a job that he found very stimulating, and in fact soon afterwards went back to the Medway yacht basin and transformed it into the Medway Bridge Marina. And here we have the litter being put through their paces. They swim so naturally, those little puppies. A few boats lined up on the beach there. A few years after this, some Greek Cypriot youths burned all the sailing dinghies where they were stored outside the yacht club on the harbour road. Maybe we might see a film of that later on. That's Michael sitting with his feet in the water, and we are now in an unknown location. Could it be up in the mountains? Looks quite mountainous. Maybe in the Troodos Mountains somewhere, perhaps at a mountain hotel. Looks very nice indeed. There may be the Berengaria Hotel up in Troodos. I'd need some help on identifying that. So here we've got nice flower arrangement, which is probably one of Daphne's. And a slightly bigger puppy. We're back in Kyrenia again, by the looks of things. In the walled garden. We had this magnificent set of naval binoculars mounted on the balcony on the harbour side of this house, and we used to watch everything that went on from it, much to the envy of the Greek Cypriot guardsmen in the castle within easy sight of us. And at one point they came up, marched into the house, and what do you say? They forcibly took the binoculars. Confiscated the binoculars. There's Sister Susan, very attractive, sunning herself. That looks like Larnaca or Larnaca? Famagusta. That looks like Famagusta, yeah. Which has now become a complete ghost town since 1974. Yeah, that's definitely Famagusta. When they invaded, they chased all the inhabitants out of this holiday resort, which was the most popular one in Cyprus, and then prevented anybody from entering it. So it's now 40 years since, and buildings are collapsing. It's just remained a ghost town. And here we have a troop of soldiers marching around the harbour. Who would they be? Probably Greek Cypriot, if they were. And there you can see the closed-in mouth of the harbour, which is a change from before. And there are the boats where we kept them, up on the road underneath that rock wall. There they are. There they're burned. Look at that. There's a picture of these charcoal scarred skeletons of all those beautiful racing dinghies.
So you say there's quite a lot of animosity towards the expat British community from the local population?
Well, yes, because between 1955 and 1959 there was an armed guerrilla insurrection against the British colonial rule, and there was a lot of the British were pretty violent, torturing Greek Cypriots to try and get information out of them. And the Greek Cypriots were holding information back because if they told anything about what they knew about the terrorist groups, they'd get knocked off by the terrorist groups. So they were between a rock and a hard place. And the British made a lot of enemies during those years.
It's a tense environment then.
Yeah. And now, 64, the civil war between the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots had begun. And the Turkish Cypriots were obviously vastly outnumbered, 18% to 80% of the population. And they were being driven into enclaves in various different parts of the island, but as British residents there listening to the state subsidized news broadcasts on the radio, we had no idea of what was going on out in the countryside, and this kind of ethnic cleansing that was being carried out by the Greek Cypriot government. And the UN was there trying to hold the two sides apart, but because they were there by invitation of what was the Greek Cypriot government, they couldn't intervene proactively. They could only go along to an existing firefight and try and stop the shooting. But if they had intelligence that the Greek Cypriots were going to go and attack a Turkish Cypriot village, they couldn't do anything about it until the fighting started. And the Turkish Cypriots would retreat into enclaves where they were sufficiently numerous to defend themselves. And they were being armed by the Turkish mainland. And the Greek Cypriots were being armed by the Greek mainland. So here we have a little group. Oh, I missed out who that was. Huge cumulus. clouds. It looks like. Yeah, we're back in Kyrenia again on the beach. What have we got here? A sailing boat. Yes, there's Kyrenia Castle in the background.